Welcome to another episode of the Gull-Mouth Action podcast, where we take a look at all the latest goings on the Brighton Hove Albion, Crawley Town and Sport in Sussex. I'm Matt Pohl, and this week I'm joined by Crawley Town expert Mark Dunford, Sam Morton, who covers both Brighton Hove Albion and the Reds, and Albion writer Henry Bryant. Brighton's winless run continued as they were beaten 4-0 at home by champions Manchester City. We'll pick over the bones of Albion's defeat and bring you all the latest twists and turns from Crawley Town's League 2 playoff charge ahead of their final league game of the season on Saturday. You can read all the stories we are talking about with videos and pictures online at sussexworld.co.uk/sport, and you can check out other great videos on shotstv.com and Freeview channel 276. You may also be watching on Latest TV. Thank you very much for tuning in. But as mentioned at the top of the podcast, Brighton's winless run extended to 5 games following their home loss to Man City on Thursday night. Kevin De Bruyne, Phil Foden and Julian Alvarez netted for City as Albion slipped to 11th in the Premier League. We were chatting a little bit before we started recording, Sam, and it didn't sound like it was great last night.
No, it wasn't at all, Matt, really. It was another tough game for Brighton, which they've had a lot of recently, and we're just obviously discussing that they are down in 11th place in the Premier League now, and the hopes really are slipping of another season in Europe. And obviously a lot of that is down to the amount of injuries they've had and the fact that they've not been able to field the same team twice, I don't think, all season, really. And they've constantly been seemingly hit by new injuries every week. Obviously, this time it was Evan Ferguson and Purvis Estupiñán confirmed to be out for the rest of the season before the game. So that presented the opportunity for Valentin Barco to get his first full debut for Brighton at left back last night. And it didn't go to plan at all. I mean, to be honest, the first 5-10 minutes, they were quite bright and they were set up really well, and it looked like they were going to be frustrating Man City. I think the commentators and the pundits at the time were saying Man City just has to be patient and just not let Brighton's kind of game plan get to them, really. So it did start well for Brighton, but it quickly fell apart, to be honest, with Kevin De Bruyne unmarked and putting in a brilliant diving header. And then there's a bit of a controversial one with Phil Foden appearing to slip over his own feet outside the box, and he was given a free kick, which he stepped up and scored via a deflection off Pascal Gross. Brighton's heads have completely dropped by this point, and they still decided to try and play out from the back as they're told to do. And it was Valentin Barco, unfortunately, on his debut that made the killer mistake that was capitalised on, and Foden made it 3-0. It was all just a bit dreadful that time. You feared it could be a cricket score, to be honest. But they may have managed to get to half-time 3-0 down. And they did improve in the second half. They definitely looked more of a threat and looked like they might get a goal back. But yeah, as you say, Alvarez killed the game off and made it 4-0. It was another bit of a defensive mistake where Barco was turned inside out by Kyle Walker. Jason Steele ran out to try and get the loose ball, but he couldn't quite get there. And then it was a tap-in in the end for Alvarez.
I was going to ask you, Henry, how Valentin Barco got on his full Brighton debut, but from what Sam said, it might have been a debut to forget.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is fair to say that Valentin Barco did have a tough first start for the Albion in that game. And as Sam was mentioning, for Manchester City's third goal, he was dispossessed while the Albion were playing it from the back, and it allowed Phil Foden to capitalise. And again, for the fourth goal, Kyle Walker was able to turn the Argentinian, which allowed a scuffed pass to fall to Foden again for a brace in that game. But despite the errors and despite some of these chances that were mistakes that led to goals, De Zerbi said that he was Brighton's best player in the post-match press conference, and he would have definitely gained a lot of experience. It would be fair to say he was very strong in his praise for Valentin Barco, and it's nice to see that he's able to sort of protect his players and make sure that despite errors that did lead to a few unfortunate goals, which could have been avoided, that De Zerbi is able to protect his players in that sort of sense. And it was quite refreshing to see and quite nice to see. And I guess that provides confidence for those players, despite making those sort of silly errors that, leading up to the next few games, especially with a big game at Bournemouth on Sunday, that we can restart in the few days we've got left before that game, and hopefully get a result against a side that have crept up one place above us now, surprisingly. So we shall see.
Yeah, I would say on Barco, he did show. Sorry, Matt. I was going to say on Barco, he did show a lot. He did show a lot of character, and despite making those mistakes, it didn't kind of deter him from going forward and trying to make a nuisance of himself. And he was probably the liveliest player for Brighton, really. You put in a couple of really good crosses, one early on for Lewis Dunk for a header on goal, and there's another couple of ones where you put a lovely kind of defence splitting pass, and there's definitely signs of a really good player there. And De Zerbi was full of praise for him in the press conference, and it made me feel a bit guilty for giving him a low rating in my player rating. I think it was a 5 or a 6, but I think if it wasn't for those mistakes, it would have been higher. It's just difficult to give a player that's made such crucial errors much higher than that, but I can definitely see why he would get that praise and the character and everything that he showed. So definitely promising signs from him.
Can you be too harsh on a player who's making his debut in England, full England debut when they're playing Man City as well? Yeah,
it was definitely a baptism of fire. So I think I've noted that as well. Just of all the games to throw him into, this is definitely one of the toughest. Because he came on as a substitute away at Liverpool, which is another really tough place to go, and he didn't look completely settled, and he was only on the pitch for a few minutes, but I think he lost the ball every time he got it, and he didn't really look kind of settled on the ball. And I did ask De Zerbi when we'd maybe see more from him, and he wasn't actually in the squad for the following game at Brentford. He'd been left out to work on his own physical condition alongside Ansu Fati, so you're kind of wondering, would he get that opportunity this season? So I definitely was surprised when he played last night, especially against Man City. But I think, to be honest, he did obviously make those errors, which you can expect for his age and he's learning. And this way De Zerbi wants to play at the end of the day, and he wants his players to learn that system. But I think, definitely the signs of a good player there.
Well, in his pre-City press conference, De Zerbi did confirm that talisman Purvis Estupiñán and Evan Ferguson, will miss the remainder of the 2023-24 campaign through injury. How big of a loss are these two, Sam? And why have injuries been such an issue this season? And how much do you think can be pinned on their European campaign?
Yeah, you can say that, couldn't you? I think they weren't used to playing a number of games, and that really has had its toll. As I said before, they've not been able to field the same team 2 weeks running. I think all season they've always had someone out, obviously for long periods of time. I think Solly March has been out from the previous time they played Man City at the Etihad. Jack Hinchell's obviously been out for a long time. João Pedro was out for a while, and to be honest, Estupiñán himself has had prolonged periods out, and he's not had the best of seasons. I don't think he's not been able to put running games together and get to the form he was in last season. And same with Evan Ferguson. He had such a great start with a hat-trick against Newcastle, and obviously he had such a brilliant breakout season last year, that we kind of expected him to kick on this year and show why he was valued so highly. And he's unfortunately not been able to do that, and a lot of that's been to do with injuries. He's just not been able to have it running the team, get the goals flowing. And when he has played, obviously, he's been relied upon to fill the boots of João Pedro, for example, and he hasn't quite been able to get back to that goal-scoring form. And it's a shame now that he will be out for the rest of the season, because De Zerbi revealed that he's been playing through the pain barrier. So that might explain why he's not being at his peak of his powers, I guess. But it's so frustrating for De Zerbi, really, that all season long he's had to deal with injuries left, right and centre. It's difficult to pinpoint one reason why that is, but I think, potentially that is the fact they've had to deal with more games than they used to.
Well, Albion travelled to 10th place Bournemouth on Sunday. On paper, Henry, this is Brighton's easiest game of the run-in, but the Cherries are currently unbeaten and 5 at home in the Premier League. How do you see this one going? You mentioned the fact that they've leapfrogged Brighton in the table.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting one for the Albion. I don't think a lot of Brighton fans, as I was saying, would have expected us to be behind Bournemouth in the league at any point this season, especially when we consider the goal that Brighton have had to get back-to-back seasons in Europe in any sort of way, shape or form. And Bournemouth, they sort of struggled last season, and it's been quite a surprising, mid-table finish. It's looking like for Bournemouth at the moment. So it's a big test for the Albion to see if they can get a victory away from home, boost morale for the players and supporters of the club. There was a tweet that was going out the other day about a child at the Albion being told off by his dad, and the punishment for misbehaving was watching all of Brighton's games for the rest of the season. And I just thought that was quite ironic, and just sort of showed sort of the nosedive in the excitement of football we're playing at the moment, with the likes of Karim Matoma out as well. He's been such a big driving force in making creative sort of runs and creative attacking play for the Albion. But it won't be an easy task for Brighton. I mean, Dominic Solanke is on 18 Premier League goals. So he's an absolute barnstormer of the season so far for Bournemouth. And at the time of recording, he's the 4th top goal scorer behind the likes of Ollie Watkins, Cole Palmer, Erling Haaland. So I can't see the home side not getting a goal at least in this game. So it will be a really tough one for the Albion. And Brighton haven't won a Premier League match since beating a struggling Nottingham Forest at the start of March. So I think it'll be a close affair, and De Zerbi will be looking to motivate his men and get them back on winning ways, maybe sort of boost that morale.
Iriola's done a great job at Bournemouth, though, hasn't he? Yeah, I think, he could. I mean, he's never going to win a manager of the season kind of thing, but he could be in the sort of conversation, him and Unai Emery, people like that. But yeah, done an incredible job with Bournemouth this year, I think.
Yes, very quickly, yes/no answer. I'm going to go around the room. Do you think Brighton are going to win another Premier League game this season? Starting with you, Sam.
You're on mute, Sam.
Sorry, I think they will. I think they'll get at least one more. I think the games they've got to get at least one. I think, as we were just discussing, Man United, you never know what can happen against them. Same with Newcastle, they're a bit mixed form. So I think, they can get at least one more before the end of the season.
Mark, can you see him getting one more win?
No.
Henry, do you share Mark's confidence?
I'm always sharing confidence for the Albion. If that goes into paper, probably not. So I'm not sure what that's worth, but I think you know what, I'm really confident that we'll be able to get something out of the Bournemouth game. I'm hoping for a win there. Not saying there's a win, but hoping.
Hopeful. Well, we shall see. Well, thank you very much, chaps. And we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk all things Crawley Town. Crawley Town's playoff hopes were dented following Saturday's 2-2 draw at relegation threatened Sutton United. How big of a blow was this result to the Reds' playoff dream, Sam Morton?
Yeah, it was a really frustrating one. Me and Mark were there watching at Sutton, and it was one of those where I expected Crawley to win. It was such a bright start. They had lots of chances to open the score, and they eventually did towards the end of the first half through Liam Kelly's sensational goal right to the top corner. And we thought it was brilliant. Me and Mark were getting very excited, checking on the scores of the other games. It was all falling really, really nicely for Crawley at the time. All the rivals losing or drawing, and it looked like Crawley were in the money. But obviously football can change very quickly, and it did. Sutton got an equaliser right at the start of the second half. And then meanwhile, Doncaster were mounting a crazy comeback, and it was all going wrong. And then Sutton ended up going 2-1 up, so it really was just a bit of a disaster. Crawley did manage to nick a point, rescue a draw at the end, and even could have won it. They had a goal disallowed. It was obviously Lolos that made it 2-2, and then Orsi thought he'd made it 3-2, but he was ruled offside, and all the frantic celebrations were cut short. So yeah, really disappointing one for Crawley in their kind of quest to get into the playoffs. But as we know, it's not over yet, and that's the message that Scott Lindsay was definitely sending out at the end of the game, that you never know what can happen in football, and you just play till the last game, the last whistle.
It's amazing though how incredible that they were still in the playoffs at the end of Saturday, because they haven't won in 5 games, and they were still in the playoffs. I mean, they're so lucky with the way results have gone for them, I think, Crawley. I mean, Doncaster have just been incredible, and if they do get in the playoffs, Doncaster, the likelihood they'll win it because of the momentum they've got is incredible. 10 wins on the trot. But I was just amazed that they were still in the playoffs at the end. So yeah, they still stand a chance. But obviously, after Tuesday night's results, they were out of the playoffs going into the final game. But we'll get on to that, I'm sure.
Yeah, I was going to mention that after the game, there seemed to be a spot of handbags at full time. What sparked the fracas, Mark, and what punishments have been doled out by the FA, if any?
It was a funny one, really. I don't really know what sparked it, and handbags is the right word. It was just a lot of thing. There was 2 people ended up on the floor, but I was chatting to someone yesterday, and they were saying the 2 people that ended up on the floor were both Sutton players, because it was one Sutton player trying to hold back another Sutton player, and the force he held him back, they both fell over. But it was just, I think it just got quite tense, really, the whole game, because I think Crawley sunk to Sutton's level to some extent. Sutton were lumping it long, and Crawley sort of tried to match that, and they were very physical. So a big side Sutton, and it's just very physical. And I think the fact that Crawley got that late equaliser and then thought they'd won it and were celebrating, and I think the whole bench was celebrating as well. And I think that just wound Sutton up a little bit. And I think just as the final whistle went, I think somebody must have said something, and it just kicked off, and literally everybody was involved: players, staff, physios, everybody. It was quite odd. But the FA have charged both teams for both clubs had allegedly failed to ensure that their players and technical area occupants did not behave in an improper or provocative way after the final whistle. So they've been charged with that, and the teams have until Friday to respond to the charges, which is today. So so we'll see. It'll probably just be a monetary fine of some description, but I think Crawley have been charged earlier in the season, so whether they get a slightly bigger punishment because it's their second offence, I don't know. But it was just handbags and just silly and just sort of marred what was an exciting day, really, because Crawley had their record attendance for a away league match. It was 1,100 and something. Crawley fans were there, and it was a great atmosphere. But it was just a shame they couldn't just get that win. If they just won 2 of their last 4 or 5 games, they could have been in the playoffs already. So frustrating. But it's all down to the final day. It's going to be exciting.
Well, yeah, the hopes of claiming a playoff place got even tougher on Tuesday night as Doncaster won their game in hand. But as Mark said, the race to playoff isn't over just yet. What results are needed, Sam, for Crawley to secure a top 7 finish on Saturday?
Yeah, well, it's very possible when you think about the form that some of the other teams are in. I think Barrow, for example, have been in a bit of a terrible run. So I think that provides Crawley with some optimism that if they do win and Barrow fail to beat Mansfield, that will be them in the playoffs. So they don't even have to lose. They can draw and Crawley will still go above them. Or if Crawley win and Doncaster lose at Gillingham, they go back above Doncaster. Obviously, that seems unlikely when they've won 10 games in a row. But Crewe as well, if they lose at Colchester, Crawley would go back above. But actually a draw would be enough for Crawley with all sorts of circumstances happening, which would be that Barrow lose by 2 or more goals against Mansfield, Bradford fail to beat Newport, and Walsall fail to beat Wimbledon or win by 3 goals or fewer. Crazily enough, a draw could be enough for Crawley, but they have to win. They've got to go and win and hope that one of the teams above them drop points, which is very possible. They've got to focus on what they have to do, focus on their task at hand, and go and get the win.
Scott, when I spoke to Scott Lindsay yesterday, he said they know they've got to win. You just said a draw will do, but they've got to go out and win. But he said if they do win, a lot's got to happen for them not to get in the playoffs. Yeah. So, if Crewe, Doncaster and Barrow all win, then what can you do? There's nothing you can do. It's just unlucky. But there's some big games there. Something funny. The Crewe Colchester one, it seems on paper like quite a big game because Colchester can still get relegated. Crewe have got to get something, but they both just need a draw. And it's just, you can imagine, I'm not suggesting there'll be any kind of thing, but when both sides need a draw, it becomes quite a difficult job for them. But it's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, we'll preview the Grimsby game in a minute, but without meaning to sound pessimistic, how will Crawley Town's season be viewed if they do miss out on the playoffs? Does it feel like there will be contrasting emotions if they do miss out, Mark? It'll be an odd feeling, I think.
I think it will be. I think it's. I think initially, if they miss out tomorrow, there'll be huge disappointment for everyone, and it will just be like a little bit of a missed opportunity because of the position they were in, and the latest results. But when after Saturday, and because Sunday they've got their awards evening, I'm sure that awards evening, whatever happens, will be an evening of celebration for what they've achieved this year. They won the fans over quite early on after what was a terrible year last year. They played some great football, got some incredible results. Had a little run in the EFL Trophy where they beat a League One club and things like that. So, what he's achieved with the players he's got, it's been an incredible season. And Scott Lindsay said yesterday that he said if we get to the playoffs, it's a great achievement in itself. But if he gets to the playoffs, it won't be enough for him. He'll want to win the playoffs. It will be initial disappointment if they don't get it. But I think people have got to be realistic and think, wow, what a ride we've had this year. And I think, and I think the players feel the same. I think the players know that they've done something special this year with Crawley Town.
Absolutely, and we're going to combine the score prediction and the preview for the Grimsby game. Sam, Bread's host, fourth from bottom Grimsby at the Broadfield Stadium on Saturday. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, it's a tough one to call because obviously Grimsby have nothing to play for. They're already safe down in 21st position, so they've not had a brilliant season themselves, but they have done enough to survive. So the pressure will be completely off them going into the game, and it's difficult to tell if that will be a problem or actually help Crawley, because obviously when they went to Sutton, they're playing a team fighting for their lives, and that can obviously impact a game regardless of what form they're in. And obviously, as we saw that, and they nearly got the win, Sutton. So you kind of have to hope that Grimsby will not be firing on all cylinders and take the foot off the gas a little bit, and Crawley need to get an early goal to kind of get rid of those nerves.
Absolutely.
The longer whether it stays 0-0 or if they concede a goal on the break, for example, it would just get a bit messy. So I think, get an early goal, settle those nerves, and hopefully get a comfortable win and have a few more goals as well. So they're definitely a banana skin, as we know, but any game can be in League Two. So they need to just focus on their task at hand and do what they do best, and get the win they need.
And your score prediction?
Score prediction, I'm going to go for a 3-1 Crawley win.
Mark, I will ask you the exact same question as Mr. Morton. How do you see it going, and what's your score prediction?
So, it's Scott Lindsay referenced yesterday that, it's dangerous playing a team that have got nothing to play for, because they play with more freedom than they have done probably all season. And he thinks Grimsby are in a false position. He thinks they're a really good side. So it's not going to be easy at all. And it is, I think the fans will be more nervous than the players. Now, we spoke to Lawrence Maguire and Liam Kelly yesterday, and there doesn't seem to be any nerves or edginess going into it, although it seemed like there was on Sutton on Saturday on the players. But I think this week, because they know exactly what they've got to do, they've just got to win. I think they're going to go out and win. Maybe, I don't know if they'll even concede. I think it might be 2 or 3-0. And like you say, I think I fully agree with Sam that early goal is key, because the longer it goes on 0-0, the nervier it will get. But I very quickly, I spoke to Scott Lindsay, and he said, because some managers now you speak to, you say, will you keeping an eye on other scores? No, we just focus on ourselves. Scott Lindsay was like, no, I'm going to have my phone on me. I'm going to be checking every 5 minutes, because he just wants to know, because it might mean that he has to make a tactical change in the game and all that. So, and if they get an early goal, they'll cruise it. But it's just relying. It's just going to be a nervous wait at the end, what the other results are.
Absolutely. And we'll have a quickly race round. Brighton go to Bournemouth. Henry, how do you see that one going? What's your score prediction?
Well, I think that Brighton showed some promise in some areas, obviously making mistakes against Manchester City. But I think that if Brighton are able to, how they did in the first 10 minutes, create that attacking threat with the likes of João Pedro, who did look good in that game despite 4-0. I think that Brighton can get a shock result, surprisingly, against Bournemouth, and I reckon it could be 2-1.
Sam Morton, what's your score prediction for that one?
I think a draw. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. Dominic Solanke is on a bit of good form. A tough one for Brighton to deal with. Just another tough game. I think we have 1-1 draw.
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with Mr. Morton there. What do you think, Mark?
2-1 Crawley. 2-1 Crawley. Crawley going to win at Bournemouth. No, 2-1 Bournemouth. I think a home win. I think it's just not happening for Brighton at the moment. So yeah.
Well, we will wait and see. Thank you very much for joining us this week, chaps. You can catch up with all the latest sports news covering everything we've talked about today at sussexworld.co.uk/sport. And you can watch more excellent videos on shotstv.com and Freeview channel 276. Thank you very much for listening and or watching, and we will see you next week.